made a promise, not to your father, not to your mentor, not to anyone watching you. You made it to the one person you can never escape, yourself. You looked in that mirror, maybe at 2 a.m., maybe after another loss, another failure, another moment where life reminded you exactly where you stood. And you said, I will become more than this. And then you didn't. You woke up the next morning and chose comfort over commitment, familiar over fearless, the version of yourself the world had already accepted, because that version required nothing from you. But understand this, a man who lies to his enemies is called cunning. A man who lies to himself is called ordinary. And ordinary men die without ever knowing what they were truly capable of. Machiavelli knew one brutal truth that most men spend their entire lives running from. The world does not reward who you could have been. It rewards who you became. It rewards the man who showed up again and again, without applause, without validation, without anyone holding his hand through the darkness. That man is waiting inside you, and he is done waiting. Number 2, the comfortable cage. Let me tell you something about comfort that nobody in your life has the courage to say to your face. Comfort is not your friend. Comfort is not a reward. Comfort is a cage, and the most dangerous kind, because the bars are invisible, the door is always open, and yet most men never leave. They stay, they settle. They tell themselves that patience is wisdom and waiting is strategy, when in reality they are simply afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of discovering that if they truly gave everything they had, everything, and still fell short, they would have no excuse left to hide behind. So they never truly try. They exist in that comfortable middle ground where effort is just enough to silence guilt, but never enough to produce greatness. They watch other men rise and call it luck. They see discipline in others and call it obsession. They witness transformation and call it privilege. Because if success is luck, if greatness is obsession, if transformation is privilege, then their own stagnation is not their fault. And that, right there, is the most sophisticated lie the weak mind tells itself. Machiavelli wrote that men are driven by 2 things, the desire to acquire and the fear of loss. But there is a third force he observed in those who never rose to power, the addiction to stillness. The unconscious choice to protect what little they have rather than risk it for everything they deserve. And that addiction will drain your years quietly, without drama, without warning, until one day you are old and the life you imagined is simply a ghost that haunts your regrets. You were not built for the cage. You were not born to shrink yourself into spaces that feel safe. Every great man who ever changed his destiny had to first burn down the comfortable life that was slowly killing him, not dramatically, deliberately, with cold, calculated intention. That is the Machiavellian way, not chaos, precision. Now wake up. Number 3, the anatomy of excuses. Let's dissect the weapon you've been using against yourself. The excuse, not the obvious ones, not I don't have time or I don't have money. Those are almost respectable in their honesty. I'm talking about the sophisticated excuses, the ones dressed in logic, the ones that sound so reasonable, so measured, so intelligent that you actually believe them. I'm waiting for the right moment. I need to do more research. I'll start when things settle down. These are not strategies. These are eulogies written in advance for the man you were supposed to become but decided quietly, without ceremony, to bury alive. Understand the psychology of what is actually happening inside you when you reach for an excuse. Your brain, designed for survival and not greatness, detects the discomfort of growth and immediately manufactures a reason to retreat. It is fast, it is convincing, it is relentless. And if you are not disciplined enough to recognize it in real time, you will spend your entire life mistaking self-protection for self-awareness. You will confuse hesitation with wisdom. You will call your fear by the name of patience and give it a seat at every table where your future is being decided. Machiavelli was ruthless in his observation of men in power, and what separated the ones who rose from the ones who crumbled was not talent, not resources, not even intelligence. It was the capacity to act in the presence of uncertainty, to move forward without a guarantee, to build before the blueprint was finished. The great men of history did not wait for perfect conditions because they understood on a bone-deep level that perfect conditions are a myth invented by men who lack the courage to begin. So here is your moment. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not after the next chapter of your life conveniently arranges itself. Right now, in this moment, with everything uncertain and nothing guaranteed, you move. Drop a comment and type, "No more excuses." Say it like you mean it, because your transformation starts the second you do. Number 4, the dark side of discipline. Everyone talks about discipline like it is a motivational poster, like it is something you feel inspired to practice on a good morning when the sun is out and your mind is clear and everything feels possible. They make it sound clean, poetic even. But real discipline, the kind that actually rewires a man's destiny, is nothing like that. It is dark. It is grinding. It is showing up on the days when every cell in your body is screaming at you to stop, to rest, to quit, to settle, and choosing with cold and absolute authority over yourself to continue anyway. That is not inspiration. That is war. A private, invisible, daily war that no one will ever witness, no one will ever applaud, and no one will ever fully understand except the man who is fighting it. Machiavelli understood that power is never given. It is constructed, brick by brick, decision by decision, sacrifice by sacrifice. And the construction happens in the moments nobody sees. Not on the stage, not in the spotlight, not in the victory, but in the silence of 5 a.m. when the world is asleep and you are already building. In the moment you choose the hard conversation over comfortable silence. In the moment you close the browser, put down the distraction, and return to the work that matters. These are not glamorous moments. They are not shareable moments. But they are the moments that separate the man you are from, the man you promised yourself you would become. Here is what dark psychology teaches us about discipline that the self-help industry will never admit. Motivation is a manipulator. It comes and goes like weather, unpredictable and unreliable. And every man who has built his life around waiting to feel motivated has built it on sand. The men who actually transform themselves operate from something colder, something deeper, something that does not require a feeling to function. They operate from identity, from a decision so firm, so embedded in their bones, that the absence of motivation is simply irrelevant. They do not ask themselves if they feel like doing the work. They ask themselves who they have decided to be, and then they act accordingly, every single time, without negotiation, without exception, without compromise. Because discipline without darkness is just a habit. But discipline forged in the fire of your hardest moments, that becomes character. And character, unlike motivation, never abandons you when you need it most. It stands with you in the storm. It carries you when your emotions collapse. It is the foundation upon which every empire, personal, professional, or otherwise, is built and sustained. You do not need to feel powerful to act powerfully. You need to decide. Decide now. Decide completely, and then let your actions make the argument that your words never could. Number 5. The man the world respects. Let me paint you a picture of a man, not a perfect man. Perfection is a fantasy for the naive and the idle. A real man. A man who walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere without saying a single word. A man whose presence is felt before his voice is heard. A man who does not seek approval because he has already approved of himself, completely, unconditionally, and without apology. A man who listens more than he speaks, observes more than he reacts, and thinks 10 moves ahead while everyone else is still responding to what just happened. You have seen this man. Maybe in passing, maybe in memory, maybe only in the vision you hold of your future self. And something inside you recognized him, not with envy, but with a deep, aching familiarity. As if some ancient part of you whispered, "That is what I was built to become." The world does not respect the loudest man in the room. The world does not respect the most agreeable man, the most likable man, the man who bends himself into shapes to make others comfortable. The world, and I mean the real world, the cold and honest world that operates beneath the surface of social pleasantries, respects the man who cannot be manipulated, the man who cannot be rushed, the man who cannot be flattered into foolishness or pressured into abandoning his position. Respect, true respect, is not given to men who need it. It is given, almost involuntarily, to men who have made themselves undeniable. Men who have done the internal work so thoroughly, so relentlessly, that their confidence is not a performance. It is a byproduct of genuine self-mastery. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But what he was truly describing was not cruelty, it was consequence. The man who is feared is the man whose words carry weight, whose boundaries are real, whose silence communicates more than most men's speeches. He is feared not because he is aggressive, but because he is consistent, because he does exactly what he says he will do, because he has proven, repeatedly and without exception, that he operates by his own code, and that code does not bend for comfort, for convenience, or for the approval of people who have not earned the right to influence his direction. This is the man the world respects. And here is the part that will either liberate you or terrify you, depending on where you currently stand. That man is a choice, not a gift, not a genetic inheritance, not a blessing reserved for the chosen few who were born into the right circumstances. He is a daily, deliberate, ruthless choice. A choice to hold yourself to a standard that most people around you will never understand and will occasionally resent. A choice to prioritize your growth over their comfort. A choice to become, inch by inch and day by day, someone whose very existence raises the standard of what is possible. Now ask yourself, with brutal honesty, with no performance, with no ego protecting you from the truth, are you making that choice? Every day, in the small moments that no one is watching, in the decisions that seem insignificant but are quietly constructing the architecture of who you are becoming. Because those moments are not small. They are everything. They are the difference between the man you imagined and the man you actually become. Drop a comment right now and type, "I am that man." Claim it, own it, because the mind moves toward what the mouth declares, and your transformation needs a voice. Number 6. Silence, strategy, and the power of invisibility. There is a weapon so powerful, so devastatingly effective, that most men never discover it, because it requires something the modern world has made almost impossible to practice. It requires stillness. It requires restraint. It requires the ability to watch, to wait, and to say absolutely nothing when everything inside you is burning to react. That weapon is silence. And in the hands of a man who truly understands it, silence is not emptiness. It is architecture. It is the deliberate construction of mystery, authority, and psychological dominance without a single word being spoken. Most men are terrified of silence. They rush to fill it. They over-explain, overshare, over-perform, because somewhere deep in their conditioning, they were taught that visibility equals value, that speaking equals intelligence, that the man who talks the most must know the most. But watch the truly powerful men of history, the ones who moved nations, built dynasties, and bent circumstances to their will. And you will notice something striking. They were economical with their words, surgical. Every sentence they released into the world was chosen with intention, delivered with precision, and followed by silence that made the words land harder than any speech ever could. Machiavelli was a student of power in its most naked form, and what he observed in the courts of Renaissance Italy was this: the men who revealed everything lost everything. The moment you show your full hand, you surrender your leverage. The moment you explain yourself to people who have not earned that explanation, you diminish your authority. The moment you react to every provocation, every slight, every attempt to destabilize you, you announce to the world that you can be controlled, that your emotions are available to anyone bold enough to pull the right trigger. And once the world knows your triggers, you are no longer a player in the game. You are a piece being moved by others who are far more disciplined than you. Strategic invisibility is not about hiding. It is not about fear or timidity or shrinking from the arena. It is about understanding that not everything deserves your energy, not everyone deserves your attention, and not every battle deserves your sword. The most powerful move a man can make in a room full of noise is to become the calm, to become the eye of the storm, to observe with sharp, unreadable eyes while others exhaust themselves in reaction. Because while they are loud, you are learning. While they are performing, you are calculating. While they are burning energy defending their ego, you are conserving yours for the moment that actually matters. And when that moment arrives, your strike will be precise, unexpected, and completely unanswerable. This is the dark art of psychological dominance, not aggression, composure, not volume, weight, not visibility, presence. The man who masters his own silence masters the room. He masters the negotiation. He masters the relationship dynamic. He masters every space he enters, not by demanding attention, but by making attention inevitable. People are drawn to stillness the way they are drawn to depth, instinctively, almost against their will, because stillness in a chaotic world signals something primal and undeniable. It signals that this man has nothing to prove, nothing to fear, and nothing to lose by simply being exactly who he is. And that, in the language of power, is the loudest thing a man can say. Practice the silence, sharpen it like a blade, carry it with you into every room, every conversation, every confrontation, and watch how the world begins to rearrange itself around a man who has mastered the art of saying everything by saying nothing at all. The quiet ones are never truly quiet. They are simply operating on a frequency that only the powerful can hear. Become that frequency. Become that presence. Become the man in the room that everyone watches, but no one can fully read. And you will have discovered one of the oldest and most devastating secrets of lasting power. Number 7. Burning the bridges that led you backward. There is a moment in every man's transformation where he must do something that feels violent, something that feels cruel, something that every soft instinct inside him will resist with everything it has. He must look at the life he has built, the habits, the relationships, the environments, the identities, and he must burn what is no longer serving his ascent. Not out of anger, not out of arrogance, but out of the coldest, most disciplined form of self-respect a man can practice, the willingness to release what is comfortable in pursuit of what is necessary. Most men never reach this moment, not because they lack the vision, but because they lack the ruthlessness. They hold on, they negotiate. They tell themselves that loyalty means tolerating what diminishes them, that love means accepting what limits them, that kindness means keeping people in their lives who, whether consciously or not, are anchoring them to a version of themselves they have already outgrown. And so they carry the weight, and the weight compounds. And the man who could have been extraordinary settles, slowly and silently, into the ordinary life that was built around him by people who never saw what he was truly capable of becoming. Machiavelli understood something about human nature that modern society spends enormous energy trying to deny. Not everyone in your circle wants you to rise. Some of them need you exactly where you are. Your stagnation is their comfort. Your smallness is their safety. Because if you change, if you grow, if you become the man you have always known you could be, then their own refusal to grow becomes visible. And that visibility is painful. So they will discourage you subtly. They will question your ambitions with the language of concern. They will call your discipline extremism, your focus selfishness, your silence arrogance. They will dress their fear of your growth in the clothing of friendship and love. And if you are not psychologically sharp enough to recognize the difference between people who challenge you to rise and people who need you to stay down, you will mistake their resistance for wisdom and abandon your path to preserve their comfort. Burning bridges is not betrayal. Let that land. Removing yourself from environments, relationships, and identities that are incompatible with your evolution is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of surgical precision. The surgeon does not apologize for cutting away what is diseased. He does not negotiate with the infection. He does not feel guilty for prioritizing the health of the whole over the comfort of the part that must be removed. And neither should you. Every great man who ever rebuilt himself from the ground up had to make peace with the discomfort of disappointing people who preferred his limitations, had to walk away from tables where his potential was being quietly consumed by the appetites of people who had already given up on their own. This is the Machiavellian principle of strategic elimination, the understanding that addition and subtraction are equally powerful forces in the construction of a powerful life. You do not only build by adding, you build by removing. You build by protecting your energy, your time, your mental space, your emotional bandwidth from everything and everyone that drains it without return. You build by having the cold clarity to look at what surrounds you and ask, with no sentiment, no nostalgia, no fear, does this make me more, or does this make me less? And then you act on the answer, regardless of how uncomfortable that action feels, because discomfort in the direction of growth is infinitely more valuable than comfort in the direction of decay. Drop a comment right now and type, "I choose my rise," because every man who has ever transformed his life first had to choose it over everything that was pulling him backward. Make that choice visible. Make it real. The bridges that led you backward were never meant to be preserved. They were meant to be crossed once, learned from completely, and then released without apology, without guilt, and without ever looking back at the smoke. Number 8. The architecture of an untouchable mind. There is a level of mental fortification that exists beyond motivation, beyond discipline, beyond even confidence. A place where a man becomes so psychologically sovereign that the chaos of the external world simply cannot find purchase in him. It cannot grip him, it cannot move him, it cannot reshape him according to its pressure, its noise, its panic, or its opinion. This is not emotional numbness. This is not detachment from life. This is the deliberate, carefully constructed architecture of an untouchable mind, and it is the single most powerful asset a man can possess in a world designed to destabilize, distract, and diminish anyone who dares to operate at a higher frequency than the masses. Because understand this, the world is not neutral. The world is not sitting patiently, waiting for you to succeed. The world is loud, it is relentless, and it is constantly broadcasting frequencies of fear, urgency, comparison, and doubt. And if your mind has no architecture, no walls, no foundation, it will absorb all of it. It will become a mirror of everything around it, rather than a force that shapes everything around it. And a man whose mind is a mirror has already surrendered the most important war he will ever fight. Machiavelli wrote that the wise man does nothing by chance, and what that means on a psychological level is profound. Every reaction you have, every emotion you indulge, every narrative you allow to take root in your mind is either a choice or a surrender. The untouchable man understands that his internal world is a territory, and like any territory worth having, it must be governed, defended, and cultivated with absolute intentionality. He does not allow criticism to become identity. He does not allow failure to become prophecy. He does not allow the opinions of men who have built nothing to carry weight in the mind of a man who is building everything. He filters, he discerns, he decides, consciously and deliberately, what gets access to the most valuable real estate in existence, which is the space between his ears. Dark psychology teaches us that the most effective way to control a man is not through physical force, it is through mental infiltration. Plant doubt in his mind, and he will dismantle himself. Feed him comparison, and he will exhaust himself chasing someone else's definition of success. Flood him with distraction, and he will spend his most productive years entertained and empty, busy but purposeless, connected to everything and anchored to nothing. This is not conspiracy. This is the operating system of a world that profits from your distraction and feeds on your insecurity. And the only antidote The only true countermove available to a man who refuses to be a casualty of that system is the ruthless cultivation of mental sovereignty, the decision to think for himself, to define success on his own terms, to measure his progress against his own potential rather than someone else's highlight reel, to be so deeply rooted in his own identity, his own values, his own vision, that external turbulence becomes nothing more than weather, observed, acknowledged, and ultimately irrelevant to the direction he is moving. Building this architecture requires practice that most men are unwilling to commit to. It requires sitting with discomfort without immediately medicating it. It requires confronting the narratives you have been carrying about who you are, what you deserve, what is possible for a man like you, and dismantling every single one that was built by fear rather than truth. It requires solitude, real solitude, not loneliness, but the chosen, intentional aloneness of a man who is doing the deepest work of his life in the quietest chambers of his own mind. It requires reading, thinking, reflecting, not as intellectual exercise, but as acts of psychological construction, laying down new neural architecture, new belief systems, new emotional responses that serve your ascent rather than sabotage it. Because here is the truth that changes everything. You will never outperform your self-concept. You will never build an external life that exceeds the internal blueprint you are operating from. The man who believes, on a subconscious level, that he is not worthy of greatness will unconsciously engineer his own failure every single time he gets close to succeeding. He will self-sabotage. He will procrastinate at the critical moment. He will shrink when expansion is required. Not because he lacks talent, not because the opportunity wasn't real, but because his internal architecture was never built to hold the weight of the life he was trying to create. So before you chase the strategy, before you build the empire, before you execute the plan, build the mind, fortify it, govern it, make it untouchable. Because a powerful mind in a difficult world is not just an advantage. It is the only foundation upon which anything truly lasting has ever been built. Everything else is decoration. Number 9. The cost of becoming. Nobody tells you about the cost. They show you the transformation, the discipline, the power, the presence, the results, but they conveniently leave out the invoice, the real price of becoming the man you promised yourself you would be. And it is not paid in money. It is not paid in time alone, though time will be demanded in quantities that will frighten you. It is paid in something far more intimate, far more brutal, far more irreversible than either. It is paid in the person you used to be. Every layer of growth requires a layer of death, the death of the comfortable identity, the death of the familiar story, the death of the version of you that was accepted, understood, and loved by the people around you before you decided to become something they had never seen before. And that death, unlike physical death, happens slowly, consciously, and in full view of everyone who knew the man you were, which makes it one of the most psychologically demanding experiences a human being can endure. Understand what transformation actually costs on a human level. It costs relationships, not because you become cold or cruel, but because growth is inherently selective, and not everyone who was meant to walk with you through one chapter of your life was meant to walk with you through all of them. Some people were placed in your path to teach you, to shape you, to reveal to you something essential about who you were at that particular moment. And when that moment passes, when you have absorbed the lesson and moved forward, the relationship that was built around the old version of you begins to strain under the weight of the new one. This is not failure. This is not betrayal. This is the natural, inevitable consequence of a man who refuses to stop growing. And you must make peace with it, completely, honestly, and without the luxury of resentment, because carrying grief over what your growth cost you will slow the very growth that made the cost necessary. Machiavelli observed that the prince who wishes to maintain his state must often act against faith, against charity, against humanity, against religion. And while that sounds severe in isolation, what he was truly describing was the willingness to prioritize the mission above the comfort of the moment. The willingness to make the hard call, absorb the hard judgment, and continue moving forward when everything around you is demanding that you stop, reconsider, apologize for your ambition, and return to the size that made everyone else comfortable. That willingness, that cold, unwavering, almost merciless commitment to your own becoming, is what separates the man who transforms from the man who merely attempts transformation and retreats when the cost becomes real. There will be loneliness on this path. Not the loneliness of isolation, but the loneliness of operating at a level that the people around you do not yet understand. There will be moments where your vision is so clear to you and so invisible to everyone else that you will question your own mind. There will be sacrifices that feel disproportionate, moments where what you are giving up feels monumentally larger than what you are gaining, where the return on your investment is invisible and the cost is devastatingly tangible. And it is precisely in those moments, not in the moments of momentum and clarity and visible progress, but in the dark, quiet, costly moments where nothing is working and no one is watching, and the old life is calling you back with every comfort it ever offered. It is precisely there that your transformation is either forged or abandoned. Because becoming is not a destination. It is not a finish line you cross after sufficient suffering and adequate sacrifice. It is a continuous, demanding, lifelong process of choosing your highest self over your most comfortable self, again and again and again, in circumstances both magnificent and mundane. It is choosing the vision over the feeling, the mission over the mood, the man you promised to become over the man the world has already decided you are. And every time you make that choice, every single time you hold the standard when everything in you wants to lower it, you are not just building a better version of yourself, you are proving to the only audience that has ever truly mattered that you are a man who keeps his word, that you are a man who pays the cost without complaint, that you are a man who understood from the very beginning that the price of becoming extraordinary is simply the willingness to stop being ordinary, and that you were always, always prepared to pay it in full. Number 10. The man you promised, delivered. You have arrived at the end of this monologue, but understand something. This is not the end of anything. This is the beginning of the most important chapter a man can enter, the chapter where the promising stops and the becoming starts. Where the planning dissolves into action, where the intention hardens into identity, and where the man you have been describing to yourself in quiet moments finally steps forward and takes permanent, undeniable residence in your life. Not tomorrow. Not after one more video, one more book, one more motivational hit of content that feels like progress but demands nothing from you. Now, in this moment, with everything uncertain and nothing guaranteed, and the full weight of your unlived potential pressing against the walls of the life you have been settling for. Machiavelli's greatest lesson was never about manipulation. It was never about cruelty or cunning or the cold mechanics of political survival. His greatest lesson, the one buried beneath every page, every observation, every brutal truth he committed to paper, was this: fortune favors the bold, but destiny belongs to the prepared. And preparation is not passive. It is not reading and watching and consuming and nodding along. Preparation is the daily act of becoming. The relentless, unglamorous, deeply private work of constructing a man worthy of the life he desires. A man whose word is law, beginning with the word he gave to himself in that quiet moment when no one was watching and everything felt impossible, and he looked himself in the eye and made a promise. You made that promise, now deliver it. Not perfectly. Perfectly is the enemy of powerfully. Deliver it honestly, consistently, and without apology. Deliver it on the hard days, especially. Deliver it when the cost is high and the reward is invisible. Deliver it until the man in the mirror is no longer a reminder of what you promised, but undeniable proof of what you built. This is Machiavellian mind. And if this monologue reached something real inside you, drop a comment right now and type, "I am the promise delivered." Make it your declaration, your commitment, your beginning. And if this content is forging the man you are becoming, like this video, Subscribe to Machiavellian Mind and turn on notifications, because the man who is serious about his transformation shows up every single time, just like you will. Now go, build, become, deliver.